Today we're building a panoramic barrel. It's going to be a 7x8 plus porch. So we're going to start by taking our 3 cradles, placing them roughly where they're going to be. And then we take our starter piece here. And then we're going to be using the screws that they provide. So we have the nails, 2.5-inch screws and 1.5-inch screws. For this we're going to be using the 2.5-inch screws. And we're going to do the overhang at 12 inches. And just measure from the corner here to the edge of this board here. Make sure it's centered. I'm going to put 1 screw through. And then we're going to square it up. And then put another 3 screws in there. And then we're going to do the same on the front. Overhang 12 inches. Just make sure you're in the center of the cradle. And just put 1 screw on and then square it up. And then put another 3 screws in. And then for the center cradle here, we're just going to measure so it's in the middle. Again, just 1 screw, square it up, and then put the rest of them in. Another thing to note is you have this small groove on the back here where your dome is going to be sitting, and the wider groove on the front for the front wall. Next, we're going to be starting with the staves. We're going to put 3 on each side. Make sure you have the groove all lined up. And again, using the 2.5-inch screws, we're just going to go on an angle here so that your screws are not visible through the top. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So next we're going to be putting in the front door. Standard is hinges on the right. And to make sure it's centered, measure the center of the middle board here so that it lines up with your starter board. And then just put it right in the groove there. Again, you can use the 2.5-inch screws to hold it into place. Next, we're going to be putting on the gables here. You can start by using a 2.5-inch screw and placing it into the pre-drilled hole up there. Put another screw in the bottom here. Okay. Next, we're going to continue on putting the staves. Use a rubber mallet to tap them into place. And then we're going to be using the nails here. And we're just going to nail them into place temporarily. And that's just going to hold it until we get the aluminum bands on. And you can also use these pre-cut jigs here to help support the back. And we're just going to use 2 of the 1.5" screws to temporarily screw it into place. So once we're a few boards above the center point, we're going to do the dome next. You're going to have one person supporting it while the other person puts that support piece in the top center. You can just use a stave for that. And then we're going to put the rest of the staves on. Also note that once you get above the halfway point, there's no need to nail the boards anymore. They're going to stay there until you have the bands on. Once you get all the staves on, we can now put this final spacer in here. So to do that, we would measure how much we have left. We have about just over 3 inches here. The spacer is 3 inches itself, so we're going to add a small spacer. So this would be your finishing piece. And here you have 3 options of spacers. So since we're a little over 3 inches, we're going to add the small one. You can do that by taking out all these screws and putting it in the middle here. You can use the 1.5" screws for the small spacer. For the bigger ones, you could use the 2.5". have it this far, you can then put the bands on. So with the two end bands, you can already make a circle and just put them on the end. With the metal ones, you'd have to put it around first before you put the bolt in. Put the bands on 2 inches from the end here. Measure all around.
Oh shit.
We use an impact with a 3/4 inch socket. You can also just use a wrench. Just lightly tighten it. Also tighten the back.
It's a brush.
Also just make sure it's 2 inches in from the end. It's easier to tighten the bottom one first. Once you have those lightly tightened, you can then go ahead and tap this into place. Once you have a nice circle, everything sitting inside the groove, you can go ahead and tighten it up more. Do the back as well. As you're tightening the back, you want to make sure that the dome is going into the groove where it's supposed to. Don't over tighten it if it's not going in. Good. Once you have the back nice and tight and the dome is in correct spot everywhere, you go ahead and put the rest of the bands on and tighten those up too. So the second band is going to be on the front wall, so it covers all your nail holes. So that's going to be 18 inches from the end of the sauna to the front of the band. center between the front end and the one on the wall. Then go ahead and take these off. So for this sauna, we're going to do a chimney out the roof. So we're going to drill a hole for that now. So you want to check above the door here, where the center is. Follow that line. That's where you're going to know which way center is back here. And then for the chimney, you put that 2 feet off the dome. So that's 2 feet off the dome and center going this way. Make a hole and then go cut it out from the top. So from on the top, you find your hole that you just drilled through and you make a 5-inch or 10-inch radius. You just have to rough mark it. It's going to be covered by a boot anyway. And then you need a jigsaw to cut out it. The chimney pipe is only 8 inches, but we do a 10-inch hole just so we have some adjustment if we need to level it. So next we're going to be putting on this ice and water shield. If you have 2 people, you can start by taking the top piece off. And then we're going to go to the center here. We're going to go 1 board up. That's where the bottom of the ice and water shield is going to start. You want to stick it past about 1.5 inches so that you have enough overhang to cover the end grain as well. Stick it on and peel the other piece of plastic off as well. And do the same on the other side, and then put the 2 pieces on the top. Once you have all the ice and water put on, you can grab a stapler. Then you want to cut off the extra. Next, you're going to want to do the trim. Start by restarting a screw. You don't want to go too close to the end or you're going to ship out the corner. And I just used the 2.5-inch screws. You also want to start on the center top board. You can tell by looking at the board that's directly above the door in the center. That's where you'll start. Once you get down to the last board, hold it into place. Grab a pencil and make a mark. And then grab a circular saw and cut that. And then you just repeat that on the back. Next, we're going to be putting on the MCO here. Start where the ice and water starts. And repeat that on the back. You can also cut the ice and water around the chimney hole. Next, we're going to put on the metal roof. So we'll start by bringing one full sheet up, and we're going to cut out around the chimney hole. You can grab a pencil and make your mark. And just grab a tin snip and cut it out. Next, you want to grab the bag of screws that were provided. So we're going to start at the trim here, the center point. That's why we did these trim pieces at the top first. I always go about 1 impact length in, just so that you have all your screws lined up nicely. One in the front and then one on the back as well. Next, grab another sheet, also marked for the chimney hole. And cut it out. So we're going to do a row of screws on each end and also a row in the center. Just make sure it's not where the band is, otherwise your screws won't go through.
Can you go more back? No, that should work.
Next, we're going to be doing the door handles and the towel hooks. So for the door handle, just grab the 2.5-inch screws, put them in the pre-drilled holes. Measure down 24 inches and center it. For the wide handle will be for the inside, also 2.5-inch screws. That will go 28.5 inches down, and also center. And for the towel hook, we usually go to the left side of the sauna so that when you're coming out the door, it's right around. Next, we're going to be installing the vent kit. So you want to grab your metal plate here and a 2-inch hole saw. You want to go about 4 inches from the top and the center of the second board from the door. And just make your 2 marks. And then you want to drill almost all the way through and then finish drilling it from the inside to avoid tearing out. Come to the inside and finish drilling it. Then you want to take your metal cover and the screws that came with it. Next, you want to grab the wood block that was with the kit and an 1.5-inch screw. And make sure the screw is going to be in the center here. Once the screw is tight, just back it off a bit until you can turn it nicely. So for the back vent, because we have a dome on the back, we can't do it on the back wall. We're going to do it on the side wall here. So we're just going to go 6 boards from the center up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to go 2 feet in. That's where the center is going to be. Because that's going to be lining up with your wood stove. Again, just make your 2 marks. Next, we're going to be installing our benches here. So we're going to start off with these support legs here. These are going to be for the back. And we have a left and a right side. So just make sure on the right side has a piece going to the top. And not like this. It should be like that. And then we're just going to look at the front block here. And we're just going to make sure that this one here is the same height as well. And then we're going to be using the 2.5-inch screws here. And then we're just going to put in all the benches. You're going to start screwing down with the 1.5-inch screws in the front here, and just go in between the boards here to hide the screws more. before you put your screws in on the back here, you want to make sure that this bench support here is lined up on both sides, so that this back bench here is going to sit nice and flush. You can do that by pulling it forward or backward. Next, you want to use the 2.5-inch screws to screw this back bench down, but you want to do it from the bottom so your screws are hidden. Also make sure that your bench is centered. And then you want to do 3 screws on each side. Next, we're going to be putting in these support legs in the center here, right where the boards go across. So you want to put a 2.5-inch screw in the bottom here. Line it up with the board going across here. Push it back far enough so that you have nice support on the bottom here as well. And tighten that screw. And then put 2 1.5-inch screws from the bottom up like this. And do that on all 4. Next we're going to be doing the backrest. For that I'm also using the 2.5 inch screws. I just pre-start 2 of them. You want to go 8 inches off the bench. Next we're going to be installing the floor, and you always want to start with the piece that has the center support sticking past. You want that to be at the back so that when your front floor sits down on here and your heater sits on there, you can still remove the front section of it. So you just want to make sure that you're in the center and it's sitting solid. And then you want to use the 2.5 inch screws and put 4 screws on each piece of floor. Next we're going to be installing the heater base. That's going to be 17 inches off the back. And then just center it on the floor. use the flathead silver screws. Next, we placed in the wood stove here, and you want to make sure that your center for the chimney is going to be the 24 inches off the back, the same as what we did the hole in the roof. And also just center it side to side. Going to put on the handle. Careful not to over tighten those screws. And we will also, because this stove comes with the option to have the chimney at the back or at the top. Since we are doing chimney at the top, we have to move this to close up on the back. So we're just going to open this on the back here. And we're going to take this and close it up here. It has a small tab that goes to the top of that. And just tap it in. And then we can close that back up. Next we can install the chimney kit. So we're going to be assembling the chimney here. The piece that has the tab here, that's going to be at the top. The other piece will be bottom then. Make sure you put some pressure on it so that it sits down all the way. Then we're going to be installing this C-clamp. And you want to look out for, so that you have the bigger lip here on the bottom, so that it seals up nicely. Make sure it's nice and sealed everywhere. So you have the option of a longer pipe or a shorter one. In this case, we're going to use the shorter one. installing this shield here using the small screws that were with the chimney kit. So at this point you want to make sure that your chimney is in its proper place, level. So when you're putting these screws in, you also want to make sure that you push the shield up and have the screws more going towards the inside so that it's going to push it up and create a nice tight seam here. Next you want to be installing the boot here. Once you have it pulled down far enough to where it sits nicely, you can go ahead and put on this clamp. Grab your tube of silicone here that was provided. And go all the way around and put a nice amount on the bottom of the boot here. can go ahead and grab these screws that were provided with it, with the chimney kit here. And you always want to start on the highest point of the roof here. Same on the back. And go all the way around, and make sure you put a screw in every corner like this first so that it holds it down and it sits nice and flat. Once you have a screw everywhere on the corners there, you can start spreading these out about 2 inches. And just place some extra screws where you think is needed. You can also put some more caulking where is needed. Finally, you can put on the cap. And just bend that tab over to hold it into place. And that's your heater installation done. And then we can finish off the porch benches and the floor. So we have these support legs here. Again, line them up with where the back one is. And we use the 2.5-inch screws here. 1.5 inch screws again. We're going to be doing the porch floor here. I'm going to be using 2.5-inch screws. So we're going to be installing a thermometer here. And then we're going to install the sand timer here. Make sure it clears in all the directions.
Sorry. Oh.
There be.
No.
So once you have everything assembled, we would recommend you start a fire in your wood stove, burn it off for a couple of hours before your rocks go in, and then you can start putting your rocks inside. They just go all the way into the bottom of the bag here, and just fill it all up. Put as many rocks as you can on top without them falling off. clamped in there nicely.